I came across a video clip of our granddaughter Madeline this week. It was taken when she was first learning to talk and had a functioning vocabulary of a dozen or so words. Mommy, daddy, Hank, their dog, Nana, Papa, kitty, puppy, play. Simple, basic words that allowed her to navigate her somewhat limited world. Now that she's in kindergarten, her vocabulary has exploded. New words every day. We were playing a word game the other day, word jumble, where you look at this hodgepodge of letters and try to make up as many words as you can using those letters. And she looked at the collection of letters and said, stoic, which I thought was pretty good for a 6-year-old. Her language skills will serve her well in the two vocations she's expressed interest in, dolphin trainer and mermaid. What she hasn't yet learned are the ways in which the very same word can evoke both positive and negative feelings. For example, the word club. I was talking with someone not long ago, and he was describing a church and said, they're really not a church, they're more like a club. He didn't mean that in a positive way. You could hear the theological sneer in his voice. It was clear the church he was referring to didn't meet his criteria for what a church should be. But Mike Goss, Ned Steele, and I belong to a motorcycle club, the Quaker Outlaws. And whenever we talk about our club, it evokes warm feelings and fellowship. So the word club can elicit both positive and negative responses. We've been discussing the habits of wholeness, those behaviors conducive to our wholeness and well-being. Let's go over them again because repetition is a good teacher. We began with balance, giving each aspect of life its proper weight, place, and priority, lest we lose our sense of equilibrium and fall. And then we talked about patience, the calm acceptance that things might happen in a different order than the one we have in mind. After that, we talked about forgiveness, which we defined as the conscious, deliberate effort to release feelings of resentment or vengeance toward a person or group who has harmed you, regardless of whether they deserve your pardon. And then we discussed empathy, you'll remember, which we defined as our ability to be aware of the sorrows and joys of another being. You'll remember we said that empathy, it is empathy that allows them and they to become a we and us. And just last week, we added generosity to our list. And we defined it as our decision to enter the lives of others as a gift. Our decision to enter the lives of others as a gift. Today, our habit of wholeness is a world that has both a negative and positive connotation, and that word is discipline. Discipline. When I was a kid, I didn't like the word discipline because it usually meant I was in the principal's office in trouble. It had a negative connotation, discipline as punishment to correct disobedience. Years later, I met with my high school guidance counselor who asked me what discipline I wanted to pursue. And that's when I learned that discipline could also mean a branch of knowledge, like someone studying the discipline of medicine or law or sociology. Around the same time, I learned a third definition of discipline, which meant training yourself to do something in a controlled and habitual way. So, for example, we might say of someone, she is a very disciplined writer or pianist, or he is a disciplined athlete. And it is this third meaning I want to talk about this morning as another habit of wholeness. Whole and happy people are disciplined. They have trained themselves to do something in a controlled and habitual way. Indeed, we realize that wholeness and happiness are usually not the result of who we know or random good luck, but of discipline, doing something over and over again in a controlled and habitual way. It's no surprise that when we talk about the cultivation of faith, we use the term spiritual discipline. These might include prayer, study, meditation, fasting, journaling, confession, solitude, service, and self-examination. For we friends, it would be silence. Our practice of these disciplines is no different than the violinist who practices for 10,000 hours to achieve the rank of expert. It is no different than Larry Bird, already exhausted after a long day and wanting to stop practicing, imagining Magic Johnson still practicing, still shooting. So Bird wrote that he would get out and throw another 500 free throws before bedtime. I don't think luck had anything to do with their accomplishments. There's no doubt that who we know, random good luck, race and gender, open doors that are sometimes closed to others. There's no doubt of that. We realize that. But those things will only open doors. It is discipline that keeps the door open. It is our determination to do something over and over in a controlled and habitual way that makes our well-being possible. There's a man I've known almost all my life. We grew up together here in Danville. When he was young, he was an arrogant bully, so I avoided him whenever possible. And then I moved away and I forgot about him. But when I moved back to town some 20 years ago, there he was. And I still made it a point to keep him at arm's length because of all those old memories I had of him. And I was successful at that for probably 10 years. But then I saw him at a restaurant. And it was one of those encounters that I simply could not avoid. And so we exchanged greetings. And then he surprised me by paying me a compliment. This was so unlike him, so unlike anything I had ever remembered of him, that it caught me off guard. And for perhaps the only time in my life, I was speechless. A while later, I saw him again, and he was genuinely nice to me and asked me about my family, about Joanne and the boys, asked me about my parents, and then mentioned that he appreciated something I had written, that he had read. This went on for several years until I felt comfortable enough to comment on his change in temperament. I said, "You've changed." And he said, "Well, that's what therapy can do for you." It turns out he had had a marriage end in divorce, was estranged from his family, and realized he needed to change. So he began therapy, and at his therapist's suggestion, became what I'll call an intentional complimenter. An intentional complimenter. His therapist recommended he compliment 5 people a day just to see what happened. And so he did. He took his job as an intentional complimenter very, very seriously. Every day, he found 5 things to compliment other people about. It was his new religion. And it turned out that this new discipline of complimenting people instead of condemning them began to change him, began to transform him. And he is no longer the person I knew as a child. Now, the idea was the therapist's, but the discipline was his. His determination to do something constructive over and over in a controlled and habitual way changed his life and made him whole. I asked him if it had been hard, and he laughed and admitted that some days it took him up till 9 or 10 p.m. to find the 5th thing to compliment, but that he always kept at it as hard as it was. You know, friends, a lot of times in life, when things get difficult or painful, we want to give up. We just want to throw in the towel or surrender or go to bed and pull the covers over our heads. I can't remember who said this, though I know it's true, that in life, we all suffer one of 2 things: the pain of discipline or the pain of regret and disappointment. Pain of discipline or the pain of regret and disappointment. The difference being that the pain of discipline eventually offers such kind rewards, while the pain of regret and disappointment festers and rankles and gnaws. Today, friends, I wish you the pain of discipline, confident of its kind rewards. Let us enter into open worship.